what's going on? Welcome to the Dad Edge podcast. I'm Larry Hagner, your host and founder of this show. Welcome, because this is a show today that I have been dying to do for as long as I can remember. So I'm super excited to have today's guest. Today, I have one of the baddest dudes on the planet, and that is Mr. Tim Kennedy. He's an Army Green Beret and UFC Middleweight MMA fighter, and he is literally the only person on the face of the earth who actually has served in the military and has fought professionally at the same time. He's been fighting professionally for 16 years. He's, like I said, a Green Beret Special Forces sniper for the past 14 years. He has all kinds of different awards, one being the Bronze Star for Valor Under Fire. He's been married for 13 years. He's got 4 kids. He's in the 4-kid club, just like me. But he's got 3 girls and 1 boy. In this episode, he's going to share stories from his childhood of what it was like to be raised by a really strong mother and a strong father who both inspired him to have basically a no-quit attitude no matter what he was doing. He comes on the show today to share insights on failure, on marriage, raising confident young daughters, and raising a strong young man. We even get a visit a couple times on the show today from his 5-year-old son, which was awesome. To see Tim interact with his son was really, really cool. We had to cut the show just a little short because he had a bounce house he had to get to. He had a bounce house date with his son, so he had to go get to that. All right, gentlemen, no more talk from me. Here is my interview with the man, the myth, and lots of records and awards, and just a bad dude, but also very humble. Tim Kennedy. Tim Kennedy, welcome to the Dad Edge podcast, my friend. Honored to have you.
Pleasure to be here.
Yeah, pleasure is mine, my friend. This is, I think this has kind of been a long time coming. Been a fan of yours for quite some time, which, by the way, don't even sweat the little ones in the background. It makes the show more real. So,
or this one right here.
Yeah, that one right there. What's up, dude? What's your name?
Are you calling Daddy?
No, does he look like my dad? I have my earbuds in, so he can't hear you.
Right.
Yeah. Now I'm just on a work call for like, I don't know, a little bit.
Your dad.
That's not my dad. Does that look like Grandpa?
Oh,
he looks like me? Oh, he says I look like you.
There's some similarities, you know. You can probably take a punch better than I can.
Not anymore.
And you probably give one too. So,
yeah.
Dude, that was priceless, man. I can't even tell you how many times my kids have walked in. Do you know who Chris Voss is? Yeah, I was interviewing Chris yesterday, and my 6-year-old came walking in. He's like, "Hey, what's going on?" And was talking to my 6-year-old. So, well, hey, let's just start out here. Your background, your childhood, your dad, he had just a huge influence on your life. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah. I mean, my dad's he's a hero. Both my parents are incredible in very, very different ways. But my dad was a very truthful and transparent person with us. And, we saw imperfections and we saw failure, and I saw motorcycle crashes, and we were not like, I'm only going to have a beer after the kids go to bed family. Like, if I'm going to have a beer, it's going to be right now. So it was, and like that might sound horrific to some people, unless everything is like that, where I got to see success and failure from every single lens at every single phase of my life from him. Like I saw he's an incredible professional as a narcotics officer at the highest level, like stealing planes full of cocaine from Pablo Escobar, and having my brother and I do pretty crazy things for him that I don't think he had a warrant to do, so he had us do them. But I also saw deals go bad. Like I saw him come home and not get the bad guy, and that bad guy had hurt kids. Like I saw him struggle, and so, and it wasn't just like, well, my dad is my hero and incredible. My uncles and my grandparents were also equally exceptional. So I had all of these male figures in my life that Vietnam veterans, entrepreneurs, lawyers, that just whatever realm that they were in, they were so successful, and imperfect. And so I have all of these nuggets, all of these kernels of gold that I've like stuffed in my data bank that I can pull out and use at all the time, and I need them frequently.
I would love to hear about some of the failures because, man, that is just a priceless lesson. But I remember you sharing a couple stories about you always saw your dad usually try to make the right decision. So you even shared a story where I think you guys were in, I think, a shopping center parking lot, and a guy hit a woman, and he's like, "Hey, stay. I'll be right back." And you saw your dad like go up and come to her defense, throw the cuffs on the guy. I believe that was the story, correct?
Yeah. So we're in Southern California, and we're at a mall. A mall for younger generations is like one big building that has lots of shops inside of it, and you park on the outside and you go to the inside. Well, the parking lot is sometimes a pretty nefarious place.
Yeah.
And this is late at night in Southern California, and we hear this blood-curdling scream of a woman that was being beat. And my dad looks at my wife, or my mom, and his wife, and says, "Stay here." Locks the keys. Later, I find out she has a gun. But and he goes over and boot scoots with this dude for a second, and wait for the police to arrive and come over, and we drive away. And I didn't realize all of the nuanced subtleties in that decision until later, when I was a father and a husband, and something similar was happening. And I wanted to, jump up and run down the street. And as I watched a couple of cops that were getting outpaced by a bad guy, and I have my family with me, and it's like, wait, I can't just get up right now. Like I am their protector. Like I am, like it's not. I loved, being in Iraq, and if I see a bad guy over there, I'm going to run over there and get that bad guy. It's super simple, pretty black and white. Like here, it's like I have a lot more to think about and a lot more responsibility. And my dad, there are numerous occasions where there were situations like that, and he didn't always get up and go and run to get the bad guy. He wasn't always the hero. There were times where, he would hang back and say like, I'm here and I'm going to protect my family. And, those all had long lasting impacts on me.
So you really learned this protector role just by watching him.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And my mom, like, I'll tell you, like a pretty scary woman. You talk about the mother hen or the mama bear. I remember we're walking across a crosswalk. I'm probably 6. So that makes my sister 4. And a car didn't stop. And the rear view mirror came off. There's a dent in the side of it and a dent in the rear fender by the time that car got past my mom. Like this is a woman that just dented a car in 2 places and tore off the rear view mirror because it didn't stop as my little sister was trying to cross the crosswalk.
Wow.
And like, that, I mean, I could go on endlessly of examples of both my parents being in those roles. And, if my mom, if there's a girl in the church that was having trouble, or somebody came into the church and that person had been abused physically or sexually, like that person usually ended up at our house and staying with us for months. I mean, it seems like growing up, we always had somebody living with us in the guest bedroom. We're feeding them, we're clothing them, but more importantly, like my mom and my dad are nurturing their soul. Like they're like, I don't know what the chi or the whatever it is that makes a human, that thing that gets broken. They were rehabilitating that thing. And I tell people all the time when they're like, how could you have done all these things that you've done? It's like, it's supernatural. It's unhuman that if you look at your resume, there's actually troll accounts that are dedicated to mocking the things that I've done. because there's so many, they don't believe that they're all real. But they're all real, like this is just who I am. And like, from an absolute truth, my brother and my sister are equally accomplished. And there's literally nothing that we couldn't have done because of the model and the mold that had been set for us. It's like you pick the sport and we would have been fighting for world championships in it. If it was golf, if it was tennis, if it wasn't fighting, that's just the way that it was. And it was so easy, thanks to them.
Mm-hmm. Sounds like it was this really phenomenal balance of toughness, protection, but yet really sort of nurturing at the same time.
Yeah, I mean, there's tough love and big boy rules that were in there.
Oh yeah.
A lot of like looking back, things that I'm super embarrassed about and humiliated. There was also damage control when I would you gotta let your kids have room to spread their wings. You have to give them like enough rope to literally hang themselves, which I did. And I mean, there were periods of time where my dad and my mom were really just trying to be insulators and shields because of the number of bad decisions that I was making. Like they're just trying to, that literally damage control, that I don't go to jail, that I didn't get another girl pregnant, that I did, like trying to, and that was not their failures. Like those were all of my failures. They gave me all the tools to be successful. And then they were also trying to give me the room to succeed. And like, as my brother at that same portion was succeeding, and I was like doing everything I could to screw my life up. So like that protection and that nurturing is also as important as the like damage control.
Yeah. And going back to the failure thing too. So, I mean, a lot of guys are, fearful of failure. It sounds like you were exposed to a man that perhaps failed often and probably failed well, and was a good example of maybe lessons learned. Like, what are the key takeaways that I can learn from failures? Is that what you saw growing up?
Yeah. Like I had this mantra, like hurry up and fail. And, I think people misunderstand what that means. It's kind of like a two-pronged thing. One is that I'm stepping up into the batter's box. That means I'm going to have the balls to go up and try. And that's the first part of it. And hurry up and fail is that I'm going to have the courage to really go and try to do this thing. And even if I fail, so be it. The second part is every time, nobody likes failure. It sucks. It is not fun. It's so much better being at the top of the podium than watching everybody else get the medal. And after you fail, it hurts. If we're going to use like metaphors, like if you're lifting a weight and you do 8 reps, 9 reps, 10 reps, 11 reps, and you cannot get that 12th rep, and you just finally fail and you drop it. Yes, your muscle failed at that point. But what's going to happen the next time is it's going to be stronger. Like you will get the 12th rep. Like if you could run flat out as hard as you could, as fast as you can, just all out, and you could run 300 meters, and then you fall off the track and you're grabbing your chest as it feels like it's about to explode and die. And you just failed. I mean, that is your body failing. The next time you could run like 310 meters. So like you just in that failure gave your body and your mind an opportunity to grow. Like I remember sitting in the courtroom and watching the judge rule on it, or the jury rule on a case that my dad had, spent maybe a year of his life working, and the guy gets acquitted, or it's a hung jury, or it's a damage to my dad as he's sitting there in his blue suit and his white shirt and his red tie. And, like there's an opportunity to go back and crack open that bottle of Basil Hayden, and drink your failure away. Or I'm back to work at 6 a.m. the next day to find the next guy. And he was definitely more of the latter.
I like that. You definitely painted a really good, vivid picture of your dad, and probably with some of the things you saw and some of the things that you were exposed to growing up. You have 4 kids now. So 3 girls, 1 boy. You have some teenagers in there. You got a 5-year-old in there. You got a newbie now as well. Now that you're in this position of fatherhood and reflecting back on your childhood, training, the UFC, being in the military, there's just a plethora of things that you have learned in your 40 years. And what are some of the key lessons that you just truly appreciate most, whether it be from childhood, training, military, whatever?
I like to give, appreciate the highs as much as the lows. I love the song, like, you're going to miss this. You're going to miss these days. You're going to wish they hadn't gone by so fast. Like the story is talking about an old man with his daughter, and she's super excited about to be in her new apartment, and she can't wait to buy a house. And he's like, "No, man, don't rush it. Like, you have this apartment with your brand new husband, and you don't need a house yet. Like, just enjoy this moment as you guys are living kind of as adults for the first time." And then the baby's crying, the chicken's getting cooked too long, and you're freaking out, and the mom is just overwhelmed. And the plumber, he comes out from underneath the sink, and he says the same thing. Like, you're going to think back to these days when you're holding your baby on your hip, trying to get the dinner done before the husband comes home from work. Like, you're going to miss these days as you're old and your hips broken. So, like, enjoying the highs and enjoying the lows, as our 6-month-old is kind of just getting into sleeping through the night, almost, like, still nursing 1 or 2 times every single night. And that sucks, like, a few extra gray hairs. It's hard to be as productive. My wife, incredibly, is a superhuman to get up 1-2 times at night and nurse a baby and go back to sleep. But you're gonna miss those, what feels like lows. Like, you're gonna miss, as soon as she's weaned, you're gonna miss that feeling, and you're gonna miss the look that baby, when she turns her head and looks at daddy, and it's just like complete overwhelmed. Like, they have no emotional control, right? Like, the legs are kicking, the arms are shaking, the eyes are wide, like, oh my God, that's my dad, right? And like, that only lasts so long. Now they have teenagers, they're like, my dad's a hairy ogre. It's the truth. Like, literally, that's the things that come out of their mouth. Like, I get called a troll more often than I get called anything else. So the highs and the lows of these things, and trying to show or teach or appreciate them with them is like the coolest thing to be part of.
Mm-hmm. I agree with that. I feel that most of the time you have to be like super purposeful about that. We have kids almost right around your age, and my son, my oldest, just turned 14. And it was literally 2 weeks ago. And I was like, dude, I literally remember the day you were born. And I remember my parents telling me that when I was growing up. I was like, I literally remember the day you were born. I remember holding you for the first time, like the whole 9 yards, like, and 14 years just flew by.
Yeah. And now you're almost an adult.
Right.
Like, your body is moving into adult stuff.
Right.
Like, you're going to start learning to drive next year.
I know. Yeah. And he's taller than my wife. He's getting close to me now. So it's like, wow, this is just crazy. And you're right. So we, like I said, you've got the bigs and the littles. That's what we call them in our house too. We got the 14, 12, 6, and 4, the bigs and the littles. And as crazy and as loud as a house is when you're raising 4 young people in it, like, there are times you just feel like pulling your hair out. If you don't have a sense of humor and you don't find enjoyment in it, like, sometimes I just close my eyes just for a minute and I just listen to the chaos that's even ensuing at my dinner table. And I'm like, I'm probably never going to hear, why are my balls sticking to my legs, come out of my 6-year-old's mouth, Maybe he will more when he's a teenager. Just some crazy thing that there's no filter, right? He's going to think about things a little more before he says it, but just things like that, man. If you don't have a sense of humor, you don't enjoy it. You're not going to get that enjoyment out of it. Are your parents, are they still together?
Oh yeah.
Okay. So how long have they been married?
We're going on 50 right now.
Dang. Crazy. Yeah. 50 years.
Also an imperfect marriage.
Yeah.
There's failure there.
Yeah.
On both parts. And there were transparent failures to us.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe as a kid, I didn't see what was happening, or I didn't understand what was happening, but now I was like, oh, that's what that was about.
Yeah.
And that like transparency is one of the best things. I have also an imperfect marriage in the sense that I have failed and my wife has failed, and I'm sure I have failed way more and way more things. But it's like I want to fail less. Like that's the point of failing.
Yeah. How long have you guys been together now?
13 years.
13 years. So you got to see, we've interviewed some just amazing guests. Some have come from a background of childhood where they saw like a pretty cool example. And then we've seen some that have just been obviously disastrous. What are you shared some lessons that you learned about fatherhood from your dad and your mom. What are some things that you learned from them just by watching them and you've taken into your own marriage with your wife?
Time is this precious commodity
mm-hmm.
that there's nothing, you can't get more of that. Like I can go make money, or I can, go get more things, or I can, provide maybe another thing that they do or don't need. And I may not be the judge of that, but the one thing that I definitely can't make more of is time. The only thing that you can do with it is how you're going to spend the time that you have. And I am trying to be as strategic and efficient with my time as possible. Like I know I have to work. I know I have to travel. I know who I am as a man. There's things I have to do to be who I am and to be who I was made to be. But that not at the cost and the expense of my marriage or my kids. So I think you have to be very, very careful and particular with how you spend your time.
I mean, it sounds like you've probably have inserted some pretty good boundaries when it comes to how is it you're going to spend your time. Do you have a way of deciding, hey, this is super important to me, I do need to go do this, and it could be for your family, it could be for work? How do you make those decisions when they come to you?
I think good communication is a big part of that, where maybe I'm not the only one making that decision, or if it is really important to me, I can vocalize, I can verbalize why it's important, and hopefully, have her on board with why it's important. But like, how am I going to explain to a 5-year-old where, like, hey, I'm going to have to go overseas for like 4 months and I'm not going to be here. And it's important that I do this. That sucks.
Yeah, that's a tough conversation.
Yeah.
Yeah. You come across to me though as when you're working, but when you're home, like right now.
Yeah, we're trying.
Yeah. What's up, dude?
What do you want?
Are you calling Daddy?
Not yet. How do you think it was my dad?
You're calling you.
Oh, okay. Because we look similar because he's wearing a hat. What are we doing after this call? Okay, we can do the bounce house. Cool.
Yeah.
All right. I have like, I don't know. What do you think? 20 minutes?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. About 20 minutes left. That looks reckless. You're going to the bounce house? All right.
Jump roping in his PJs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A bull? Oh, you're going to ride a bull. That sounds also dangerous. Yeah, he's going to get real.
Yeah.
We have a deal. It's going to rain outside. And if it's raining, because we're pretty active, like we do mostly no TV in the house and like no iPads and no iPads, definitely. So he needs things to do. So if it's raining outside and we're inside, that bounce house goes up.
We've got an indoor bounce house too for the littles, and man, they dig that thing. That thing's a lifesaver.
Yeah. For sure.
It's funny, man. My 6-year-old is downstairs in his pajamas. He after we get done with this interview, my job is to take him out in the garage and work out with him. That's actually
cool.
Believe it or not, that's his homework from school, from virtual school. So they're like, you need to make a 10-minute video working out with your parents and submit it to the teacher. So we work out as a family in our garage anyway. And my 12-year-old's going to be joining us too.
That's awesome. Yeah. Yes, sir. You're going to hit yourself in the face, I'm pretty sure. He has the dog rope and he's whipping it around. It's going to be dangerous.
Yeah, that could cause some damage without a doubt.
Yeah.
So, as far as, would you have ever thought, I know there was a big decision for you that when you were in college, and you saw 9/11 go down, that ignited something in you that put you on this journey to join the military, to be in the special forces. Before that even happened though, did you ever see yourself, I know I think you had ambitions to be in the FBI, law enforcement in some way, shape or form. Did you ever think though that your life would have turned out the way it is now?
I never I never thought about being a father or a parent before it kind of just happened in my life. And, my first 2 kids were completely unplanned. And, as a period of like super selfishness of my life, I didn't want kids then. I didn't think I would ever want kids. And then you're a dad and, what are you going to do, man? In the military, it's like, what are you going to do, LT? It means that you have reached a failure point where you're going to have to make some big boy decisions about what is going to happen moving forward. And what are you going to do? LT is like, you don't make the right decision, all of our guys are going to die. Or you're going to fail Ranger School or whatever the big consequence is in life. It's like, am I going to be a deadbeat dad? Am I going to give everything up to, and work at McDonald's and that's the best, that's the new best version of what's available. That's a pretty fluid, there's a lot of things happening right there. And at the time, when I said my parents were doing damage control, like that's all happening at the same time of me going into special forces. And that's a scary thing.
Yeah. So the decision for you to go into the special forces, I mean, that did come out of 9/11. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Was the lessons that came out of that for you going through that training, how have those lessons served you now?
I mean, like every single phase of training, from special forces training to, sniper school to counterterrorism, hostage rescue schools, SEER school, every one of those, like if you were going to reduce that whole experience down to like just a few ideas one of them would always be humiliating, where like, I think I am better than I am. And then at the end of this, I have now learned that I'm way less of a being than I thought I was. And that's like going to the ODA and being like, man, I am a stud. I am fast. I am violent. I am capable. I'm invincible. And then your team sergeant being like, you suck. You're the least experienced. You don't know how to follow orders. You have no attention to detail. You don't even understand what the implied tasks are when I asked you to do something. You are completely useless to me. You're like, wait, I'm sorry. This does not compute. Do you not realize how exceptional and extraordinary I am? Like, and that is every single phase. And so like the lessons that I kept being taught was humility.
Yeah.
That's a sucky lesson to learn.
Yeah.
And the number of times I've been taught it, I think should be an indication of why my daughters call me ogre and troll.
Yeah. They definitely keep you humble. It sounds like.
Yeah.
Yeah. As we, and we can kind of start to wrap up anyway, because I know you want to get to your little man. As you raise 3 daughters and you raise a son, how do you go about how do you go about raising a strong, young, confident woman? And then on the flip side, how do you go about raising a strong, young, confident young man?
Well, the young man, I'm going to use my mom's words. You, when they're young, you keep the blood in the body and you clean them occasionally. That's what you have to do for like half their life. Then you have to empower them to become men.
Yeah.
Like I believe that one of the things that is horrifically missing from this generation and why we see kids doing school shootings and acting out and failing as parents and failing in business is because of the lack of masculinity. And I think that it's a beautiful thing that we are made very different and that you have to raise kids very differently between boys and girls. Like you have to, like, I'm not talking like chest pounding, like I'm strong, I'm a man, wife beater, you've listened to me, I'm going to go to work from 9 to 5. Like that's the opposite of what I'm talking about. I'm talking about like exposed and real and transparent and hardworking and calloused hands, and loving and tender. Like the only way that you can be tender is if you have the ability to be strong, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then you're choosing to be gentle. Like if you're just weak, you're not gentle, you're just weak, right? You have to be strong to be able to be gentle. And like to be a powerful leader, you also have to be humble. And it's like those things, like the contrasts of those are evident. Like you don't get to pick who your daughters are going to choose as their spouse. Maybe there might be a little bit of damage control in there, but like by the time they're like 16 and 17, they will have looked at you and they're going to be gauging these men, hopefully, off of the example that you have set. Like how you have treated your wife and how you have talked to your daughters. And like, if you hit your girls, you think that they're going to go out and find somebody that doesn't hit them? No, they're going to find somebody that hits them. Like if you are mean and you speak with hate or with anger to them, like they'll find people that do that. Or you can be real and you can be transparent and you can be imperfect and you can try your hardest.
I like that, man. Out of all the guests we've had on, we've never had that view, and I appreciate that view. As far as, and it makes a lot of sense too. The way we treat our kids is the way they're going to tolerate being treated as they get older. So I think that's a solid lesson, my friend. I want you to get to that bounce house.
Yeah,
so
that's going to happen.
Yeah, that's important. But before we do that, I want to make sure that the audience can find everything that you're doing and make sure that they can connect with you. And I know you've got all kinds of things that you're doing these days. So I want to make sure we point the guys in the right direction.
Well, appreciate it. You can find me on Tim Kennedy MMA on like all social, Instagram, Twitter. I have TikTok, hence I have teenage daughter. So that's a thing. But like Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter are like what I'm mostly on. Like if you want to learn how to shoot and fight, I have a company called Sheepdog Response. We train men and women, military, law enforcement, and minivan driving mom. Like you are welcome to come and learn how to be a better protector of your family. And I hope after this pandemic, people have realized that they need to take their own family security seriously, and they should be able to provide for them. And we're a group that teaches that. So that's a Sheepdog Response. And I'm almost done writing a book that'll probably be out in 6 months ish.
Awesome, man. Can you share what the potential title is going to be or anything about the book?
Like the titles are, Why Do I Suck at Everything? That literally is a title. I'm Just Too Dumb to Die. That's another one. I think another working title was, And I Got Kicked in the Dick Again. I'm sure you see this reoccurring theme here.
Yeah, I keep seeing something, this, yeah, you're right. The theme just keeps popping up all over the place.
Story of my life.
Right. Well, I'd love to have you back when your book's going to be released.
It would be my pleasure.
Yeah, the guys love things like that. So, gentlemen, no need to worry about all those links. I'll have all those links in the show notes. Just go to gooddadproject.com/270 for this show. Tim Kennedy, from a man who has 4 kids to another, and for all you do, and thank you for your service. Thanks for coming on today, man. I just truly appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
You bet. Now go get to that bounce house.
Yeah, here we go.
All right, man.
All right, take care.
See you. Bye-bye.